Welcome back to the Impact Driven Leader podcast. This is your host, Tyler Dickerhuff. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for joining along this day, afternoon, morning, mid-morning, evening, whatever time of day that you're tuning in, listening. Man, I'm glad you're here. So many different conversations I've had with this last week, whether it's Nick Hilarious joining in, listening, Stu Johnson, Jesse Pierpoint, Jeff Shaw. There's just a few examples of conversations I've had with people. Oh, man. Coincidentally, that's all right. I know there's women that listen as well. Today, I hope that this conversation brings you tremendous value. This relationship where Heather and I are just getting to know each other, we are actually introduced about 6 weeks ago at the time of this recording. My mutual friends, Jordan Montgomery, as well David Nurse, have connected us both in the past, said, man, you really need to have Heather on as a guest. And I'm grateful to have met her at an event in Orlando a few weeks ago, co-hosted, put on by Jordan Montgomery and Chad Johnson. It was at a John Maxwell event, and that's where we talk about our conversations, interaction with John. And there's going to be some references there, as well there's going to be some references to our own experiences. Heather is a multi-book author, the first of Confidence Creator and then Overcome Your Villains. She shares her journey in those books, and one thing that we get into conversation about is where confidence comes from. And one thing that I take from her books and our conversation is that really we allow our confidence to be affected by those around us. And it really is driving our confidence and our ability to lead, impact, and influence others comes from how well we do to drive confidence in our own abilities. And sometimes it is affected by those around us. And if we can get into more rooms like I was with Heather and so many other great supporters and friends, people that have been previous guests or future guests, I understand, man, that really goes to show the impact I'm making in this world. I hope you understand that too. Heather writes this, I refer to it in this episode. There's nothing wrong with you. You might just be in the wrong room. Take that, listen to this episode. I'll follow up at the end, wrap it all up. And again, thanks for being here. Heather, I'm so excited to have this conversation. In one part, because my good friends Jordan and David have talked so much about you. We have many other mutual friends. I got to actually meet you just a few weeks ago now. It was in Orlando. And man, I'm excited to share with this audience, but really dig into the work that you've done. One, not only transforming yourself, but helping so many other people transform in the area of confidence. And I shared this with you in the open. And this is, I'm going to set the stage and then off you go because you're an amazing speaker. As I shared with you that to me, one of the limitations of personal confidence is our insecurity. And you reacted to that because, to me, men display it most often in kind of like arrogance. And I call it just being an asshole. It is what it is. And I think so often, and you pointed to this in some ways, that for women, I describe it as they end up just being the doormat. They let people walk all over them. They apologize for things that they have no control over. They end up getting, again, walked all over. And that's because they're very low on empathy. And so my belief in leadership is when we have healthy empathy, we're the best leaders we can be. So I want to just set it there, and I'm going to sit back and take a lot of notes.
Yeah, well, I mean, you bring up an interesting point in that men, when they're insecure, will be like over the top, almost people will think, oh, they're so confident. That's not confidence, right? That's when someone's trying that hard. It's because you feel really insecure. And P.S., I've been that person. Like, I remember being at a restaurant in my early 20s and a very nice woman passed me a note. I was so over the top, wanting attention. I was so insecure and I wanted to be the loudest in the room, and it was inappropriate. It was forced. And she saw it and she sent me this really sweet note. And I was so angry, and how dare she give me this note? And basically saying you don't need to force yourself so much, take a deep breath and be yourself. And I was just, I was livid. And it was just so interesting when I look back on that moment, how we respond and react to different things. To your point, I was reacting like a guy, some of these guys that are like over the top, aggressive and acting so full of themselves when they actually are just struggling. To your other point about women, and this, I see this all the time. so many women will just apologize for everything, blame themselves, put themselves beneath others, put themselves last, just really put themselves beneath everyone else when they
Yeah.
struggle with confidence. So yeah, it can be different. It can be the same. I know on both sides,
So
that some people have more masculine tendencies, some more feminine, but it is interesting to see that everybody struggles with confidence, no matter who you are, whether you're
100%.
in a leadership position or not. People are always, second guessing themselves, struggling with imposter syndrome, doubting themselves. I actually did a post today, Tyler, about this on LinkedIn, which was I was very recently on Dean Graziosi and Tony Robbins' virtual stage, which is like, that's huge. It's like a big deal, right? And so something that for me was like a wow, like I'm here, and I was putting some pictures up showing it, and I thought to myself, I bet someone's going to see this and think, oh, Heather just like every day wakes up, so confident and kills it every day. That's not true. And so my post ended up changing right at the last minute. I was going to talk about that experience and how great it was and what I learned, but then I decided to say no. And instead, I wrote about
yeah.
you might look at this post and you might think this lady's got it all together. She's confident all the time. No, here's the real truth, full of self doubt, questioning myself, wondering, do I really warrant to be on the stage? Praying to God, please speak through me and allow this to go well today.
Yeah.
Right? Like I am just like anyone else. Even though you might see the image like from this great place or this great stage or this big opportunity and think that person's not like me.
Yeah.
Heck no, we are all the same. Everyone is struggling with confidence at some point in time. And if they're not, they're either so fake and so disconnected from themselves, it's horrifying, or they're not pushing themselves into new opportunities to grow. And neither one of those people do I want to hang with.
Okay. So that's phenomenal. And that's great. And there's so much there to chew on it and go with more. And one thing I want to rephrase, I said, it's kind of stereotypical that men, when they're, it's almost accepted that they're, more boisterous or, almost aggressive. And now we're in this place in society that's like, well, you have to be this uber aggressive, masculine person to actually be male. And it's like, no, you're just as bad. You're just as bad as the person that's just be humble, be, empathetic. And again, put your arm around people and be encouraging. And it's not this, oh, I am a lion, hear me roar. It's like, you're worse off. Really, to me, it's worse off. And the same point, I think when women are that way, it's often like, oh, she's doing too much, or we start to take back, whereas we expect men to be that way as uber masculine. And then there are men that are just doormats as well, right? I mean, that's how we deal with those issues, and women vice versa. But it's almost as our society is expecting men to be a-holes, right? To be that uber aggressive, and we accept it. Not that it's right, but we accept it, and we expect women to not be, confident and, stand and assertive. And I love how you shared in one of your books. I don't remember which one. I think it was your second one, where it's really about being assertive. It's having the preparation. It's looking at your strengths and then being grateful for the situation. Is somewhere you wrote it. It's amazing. And it's just understanding that sets us forward, that we don't need to be over the top. And at the same point, we can stand up and be powerful in ourselves and not feel like we need to overpower.
Yeah, I mean, it's so true. When you get to this place of realizing I was born an original, I'm not going to die a copy, I'm just going to show up as me. I'm
Yeah.
not vanilla. And being me is when I find my real confidence, my real power. It's such a place of peace. Like it's not a place of forcing or being aggressive
Yeah.
or, begging others for opportunity. It's just being. And
Yeah.
it's been a lifetime journey for me to get to this place. And again, I still, as I just mentioned, I struggled when I go on to those big opportunities that I haven't been on yet. I still get fearful. I still have self-doubt. That's real, right? And I'm super proud of it, like, because I still find ways to push myself out into those new environments. And when the more you do that, repeat, rinse and repeat, you start saying, okay, like I know how this movie is going to go. I can
Yeah.
feel a little bit more confident. Maybe not 100% confident, but I can feel a
Yeah.
little bit more confident. And then you can learn hacks and tricks and tips that work for you along the way so that you can get yourself out on that next big
Yeah.
stage, that next big opportunity.
So, in light of confidence and how we get there, and in really action, believing that you can and be actionable about it, I had a recent guest that shared this with me. He goes, we shouldn't be afraid of imposter syndrome if we rephrase it in this way. If you don't think you're worthy, or if you don't think that you're capable, well, there might be a reason, the fact that you've never done it before. You're in a new place, and just embrace that and understand everything you've done has put you in that place. And as leaders or encouraging other people, is just understand that and give them grace. If you hire somebody new in a role, they've never done it before, they're going to sit there and maybe they have false confidence thinking, I can handle this all, and said, hey, there's going to be things that come your way that you'll never, ever seen before. And that's okay. I believe that you have the ability to overcome that. But when we start to look at it in that frame and understand imposter syndrome, as they expressed, was more of this idea that you should know for whatever reason. But if you've never been there, you've never done it, there's no reason you should. And that's okay. And as leaders or as people championing others, is go through that process with them and accept it rather than expecting different.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, listen, the word yet is really powerful. And I like to lean on that word when I'm thinking about someone, whether you're bringing someone on your team or thinking of advancing someone. I put myself in the shoes, and I explained to them. I remember when I graduated college and I got into sales, I wasn't good yet, right? It
Yeah.
took a lot of reps. It took a lot of cold calls, a lot of training. And then when I got promoted to sales manager, I wasn't good yet.
Yeah.
And then I started leading teams and making mistakes and watching others and learning and advancing. And I got better at that. Then I became an equity partner. I wasn't good at that yet. And I remember I
Wow.
made lots of mistakes, right? And I look back at my career and I can point to countless times I wasn't good at something yet. And the more you give yourself that grace of the word yet, that, yeah, everyone starts as a beginner. Everyone sucks at first. I'm so proud of this. Actually, on this Dean Graziosi, Tony Robbins thing, I just filmed a course for them. And one of the things I said was, I need the video of me speaking. Gosh, I don't even remember what year it was. Maybe it was 2009. I was speaking in front of thousands of people. It was my first like massive stage opportunity, and I sucked. And I have the footage, and I'm like, guys, I want this footage in there. And they're like, why is it so important? I said, because so often people just see the final product now, right? I've been
Yeah.
speaking on stages for over 20 years. That's not fair. No one's going to
Yeah.
be able to relate to that. Our job as someone to lead someone, advance someone, help someone else is to show I suck too, right? I'm not perfect every day. And I was horrible when I started. And so to me, it's really important to like shine a light on, we all had those not yet moments, but people don't talk about them often, and it's easy to forget about them. A friend of mine said to me that what they do is they Google different people, celebrity speakers, authors, whatever it is, like whatever your jam is, and go look at them 20 years ago. Go look at them 15 years ago and see what you find online. And it's going to be eye opening. You're going to be like, oh, yeah, I'm ready for this because I'm better now than that person was at
Yeah.
their beginning. Giddy up. Let's go.
Yeah. One of my mentors, he shared this with me, is every master was once a disaster. And it's just remembering that. It's like everyone started somewhere. We met at a John Maxwell event. And, spending a lot of time with John over the last few years, the years now, and being a big mentor in my life. And one of the things that I appreciate from him in twofold there is like coming to grips with your fallibility, meaning you're gonna make mistakes, and instead of thinking, if I'm not perfect, they're gonna think less of me. And one of the things that I've learned from John is if you have great thoughts and if you're able to communicate them, no one cares if you connect to their heart, because we're all human. And realizing that if you continue to work at it, you'll get better. But that takes a lot of work and effort, and you can't magically be perfect or be this, titan of being able to do it. But I also know this: if you're trying to get to perfection, you'll never be there. Because it's just, how do you continue to connect to people's hearts? And I think if you do that in leadership, you do that in speaking, man, that's what people really, really connect to. And that is what moves them.
Oh, it's so true. He's such an incredible leader, by the way. Gosh, I'm so blessed and grateful to our friend Jordan Montgomery for bringing me in the
Yeah.
fold with him a couple of years ago. So he is masterful, and I just want to use this example with him because you brought him up. He's masterful at becoming a friend to everyone, not trying to, the easiest person in the world that could separate himself and say, I am the best leader in the world. Like, Google me, like it's legit. You'll see it, right? The stats are there. He doesn't do that. He says, instead, I'm your friend. And it was so cool. We were in this private session with him at a roundtable with a bunch of young leaders and amazing people. And one young leader said, gosh, what do I do when people aren't giving me the respect that I deserve? And I warrant more, and my show's a top show, and I'm a
Yeah.
top leader, and I'm,
Yeah. I remember her saying that. Yeah.
and I was so proud of her to voice her truth and her struggle.
Yeah.
And he was really direct with her and said, that isn't for you to own. That isn't for you to say. And he said, from the way that I've done it is, I show up as everybody's friend. I'm not showing up as their leader. I'm not showing up as the best. That they will determine that for you. I just show up as me. And it was just such a cool moment. I remember hearing that, and that we all can get caught up in ego. It's normal. It's human. We're all human, right? Like, we want to be seen as whatever accolades that we won or believe others should receive about us. But in reality, if we take it instead as, I want to connect with people, I want to, be together with people and have an opportunity for learn from them. They can learn from me. Like, it can go either way. You can be a mentor or a mentee in any situation with anybody. And that's just truth. I can learn so much from a 21-year-old, right? It doesn't matter how old you are, how much expertise or experience you have. It's about being open and just being real. And the more you embrace that, the more people are going to relate to you, the closer people are going to be pulled towards you. And he's just such a great example of that. So famous, so iconic today. Yet he's the first one to say, hey, I'm John, I'm your friend. He's not, talking about his stats and his accolades.
Well, and I think hearing from John is he had to grow a lot there. He had to grow over time. I think he's had that in him, but he shares the stories in some of his books that are personal. Is like when he was in his late 30s, early 40s, the people he worked with got him this shirt. It's like, no one's as important as you, because that's how he presented himself. And to me, that gave me such tremendous ability to say, if he has grown that much and transformed, then there's hope for me. Because I've struggled with that, and a lot of my arrogance showed up as my insecurity showed up as arrogance or overconfident. And it's like, I had no reason to be. And the woman that you talked about, I actually went up to her during that event. And I said, hey, you have nothing to prove. Don't worry about it. Just you keep being you and be confident in who you are, and you'll be in the right room. And it's funny, as I'm thinking about this now, there's a point that I heard today preparing for this, reading your book. There's nothing wrong with you. You just might be in the wrong room. Somebody really smart wrote that. I mean, an amazing woman wrote that. To me, that's something, if no one gets anything else out of this conversation that we have, and this is something that I underline in my notes that I'm like, we could really spend the whole time talking about. There's nothing wrong with you. You might just be in the wrong room. Or I'll take that to the other extent. There's nothing wrong with you. So quit trying to make yourself who you're not to please other people. Instead, how can you make the real you shine in ways? And John, that's be a friend that connects and serves people.
Oh, it's so true. And thank you for saying that. Thanks for a shout out for my book. But I'll tell you, and for everyone listening, I'll give you the example that Tyler's talking about, is that for 14 years, I was at a certain company, at a publicly traded company. I was a C-suite executive. And the entire time I was there, I was always treated as secondary. And I knew it, right? But we get into situations, whether I used to say, I have golden handcuffs, I can't leave. I came up with a million excuses why I couldn't leave. I knew I wasn't valued. I knew I wasn't treated well. People on the outside did not see that. I understand that. They saw, that I made a lot of money. I had a big title. I was a woman who broke the glass ceiling. Oh, yay. Yeah. Right? Like, there was all these, oh, it's wonderful. But I was not valued or regarded in the way that I should have been. And I knew it in my heart of hearts. You will always have the answer for yourself. That's the most important thing to know. Listen to yourself and your own intuition over everything. I knew that. I was just scared of what could be on the other side. I was afraid to make the leap to leave. And that was about self-doubt. That was about a lack of confidence. Anyhow, through this time, for years, I would pitch myself to be on the board of directors of the company. I warranted a seat at the table. They needed me at that table. Gosh, they need me a lot more now than they did then. Their stock prices dropped
There's
immensely.
still ownership. You put a lot into it. That's okay. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, truth. So it's so true. But so here's the thing: I was pitching myself for a board seat for years, and I'd always get the runaround. I would get this: "You're doing such a great job where you are. We don't want to distract you."
Oh,
Or I'd get this: "You've got so much on your plate, and we so empathize with that." Right? Like almost using these things against you, like that you're good at
sure.
your job. Right? So it's BS. I knew it was BS, but I would allow it to go on. This rhetoric and these just runarounds. So eventually I would say, like, I need to know, when is this happening? I know this table needs me, this board needs me. I need to be added to this team. Yeah, we'll get back to it. Anyways, I end up getting fired. And what's interesting here is this: I get fired, and within a year and a half, I landed my first board seat. And what's so wild is that I'm the only woman on the board now, which I'm super proud of. I'm grateful and proud I'm there and that they picked me. We love each other. We get along so great. Everyone's unique and different in their own regard, and we all bring our own value. But when I walk in, they go crazy. And anytime I have to miss a board meeting and I have to call in virtually, they're so upset. I'm wanted at that table.
Yeah.
However, cut back to my old situation, they never wanted me there. I was
Yeah.
there because I performed at such a high level that they felt like, ugh, we can't get rid of her. But I wasn't really wanted. And there's a
Yeah.
huge difference between being wanted versus being tolerated. And
Well,
never allow yourself to be tolerated. You're worth more than that. And it's going to chip away at your confidence. It chipped away at mine. And I'm so grateful I ended up getting fired, which ended up being this incredible gift, which that woman
yeah.
thought she fired me that day. But I actually fired my ultimate villain from my life. And it set my life up to take off in a completely new and different trajectory, which I'm so grateful
Yeah.
for. But that's what landed me on the right board seat at the right table instead of the
Yeah.
table that I never belonged at to begin with.
Well, and I think there's a piece there where it's sometimes it takes having the confidence in yourself that what I'm fighting for, they're never going to give me. So I can go find it somewhere else. And I think that comes to that room. If you're trying to establish, say, I need to be in this room, I deserve to be in this room, maybe the people in that room don't deserve you to be there.
Well
And
said.
it's sometimes understanding, hey, leaving that room and going and finding a room that appreciates me and sees the value that I bring. And maybe I have to create that. Or if it's finding the relationships that truly value what I have to offer, man, that's the place you need to be, because if not, you're constantly fighting and they're looking for ways to exclude you. They're looking for ways to say, to downplay, to say, oh, but instead of saying, man, how can we lift you up? How can we get, more of what you're magical about and make sure that's the priority instead of, yeah, but.
It's so true. Yeah, no, you need to realize, and it took me a long, long time. And again, I told you I got fired in order to make that leap. It wasn't like I finally
Yeah,
had this epiphany moment. I still was scared, I got
yeah,
fired, but yeah, if things aren't connecting, something's wrong. Like take a step back from it, like step out of the situation for a moment to observe and ask yourself that question. What's really
yeah.
going on here? Had I really and truly done that, I would have said, I'm scared to leave. I know this is
Hmm.
not the place for me. I know I'm meant for more, but I'm just afraid to do it. And that would have been my
Yeah.
truth.
Well, and I think so many people are stuck in that place. I've been in that place in myself in life where we're like, man, I just need to keep doing this because eventually it'll come. Instead of saying, no, it's not going to. Either I need to grow, I need to transform, which I've had to do, but also that's led me to places like we are now. I've gone through that journey. You've gone through a journey, and now serving people through that journey to help them do that same thing. And for me, I think that's what is so empowering. The opportunity to talk about it is there may be a point where you think, well, this is who I am, and that's fine. Be who you are, but understand as I'm looking at my desktop. And my desktop is a desk that I made out of some wood that was in a building we owned, and I took out of it. And on the bottom side of this plank, it's rough. Like I didn't sand it, and just the top I sanded. And I thought about this at times, and I think it applies here, is sometimes the wood is so beautiful that in order to find the real beauty, you got to sand down that top layer that's been developed as kind of the rough side to keep everyone away, or just what weathered you. And it's the right room with the right leader, with the right person, the right carpenter that can sand away and bring out the real beauty in you. And that's being in the right room. And there's nothing wrong with the wood underneath. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just saying, are you in the right room where the leader, the friend, as in John, who's brought so much good out of me because he's helped me sand away the things that weren't serving me. It's taken the armor away that was that insecurity. And I think, to me, that's where the real confidence starts to come out. And you're like, oh, I can be me. They want
Yeah, I mean,
me.
we all heard that expression, right? A fish can't climb a tree, right? Like, you're not going to be successful if you're put in these situations that aren't conducive for you, aren't with people that support you, aren't bringing out your talents and your skills.
Yeah.
You need to recognize that. And I just love that analogy of the fish. Like, no fish is going to be great at climbing trees. It's not going to work, right? That's not their vibe. That's not their place. So figure out, okay, maybe I'm not thriving as an accountant because that's not my passion. These aren't my people,
Yeah.
but I love art, or I love this or that. Go find ways in your free time, on your weekends and night, whenever it is, surround yourself with those people, jump into that arena and really feel that creativity, that passion, whatever it is, and start saying, this is where I want to be. I'm not there yet, but like, I can take steps today and tomorrow and find a way to ultimately get there.
So I want to hear your perspective now. Here we are, almost the end of 2023. You know, we're kind of out of this last wave of whatever COVID did in organizations, and organizations are trying to figure out, or people are trying to figure out, what is our world now? How do organizations run? What does leadership look like today? What's your perspective as you're going to stages and you're speaking to audiences, or you talk about with Dean and Tony, like, what's your perspective there, and how are you seeing this next wave of growth in leaders that you're spending time with?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? Because, gosh, COVID was such a nightmare, frankly, but it
Yeah.
changed everything drastically. We'll never go back to what it used to be. And speaking is such a great example of that. Now, when I'm doing in-person events, they'll say, Heather, camera one is, we're recording you here for actual live
Yeah.
in audience. You see your live in audience. Camera two is your virtual audience. Camera three is the feed. Like, everything is so completely different, because I truly think it's ultimately going to be, we're always going to have this in-person element as well
Yeah.
as virtual element now. So
Yeah.
you're dealing with these two different dichotomies that you need to cater to each one. And so, yeah, it's hard to build trust and build relationships on the internet. Like, it's not as easy as it is in person. It just isn't. And of course, there are some techniques that you can utilize to establish trust and to get people to empty their glass to you. And that's so important online. But whenever possible, to show up in person is critical. And I believe people have forgotten about this. Here's a great example. I coach a couple of different people. And one individual that I've worked with for a while, I had a meeting with this morning, and he's explained to me, we just lost our number one seller, which is a huge problem, especially in a company like theirs that's on a massive growth trajectory, and they have 25 sellers. Losing your number
Okay.
one person can really change things for the worse. So I said, well, where are we at right now? You know that salespeople work for people, not for companies. And he said, yeah, well, I mean, we're going to try to make a counter offer, but I don't know what else to do. And it killed me. I said, okay, how easy is it to say no to
Yeah.
you online? He's like, I
Yeah.
don't know. I'm like, it's really easy. Let me tell you, because all I do is respond no to the email and I move on. How hard is it to say no to you in person? He's like, well, yeah, I guess it's a fair point. It's pretty tough. Great. Jump on the next flight. Hang up with me right now and get on that next flight and show that person how important they are to you, and plead
Absolutely.
your case to them in front of them and talk to them about the commitment you're making. Like, show up. And I believe a lot of people forgot about that because we had that, 2-year window of just everything was virtual, that we kind of fall back on fear with living in virtual, when the reality is this: if something's important, I don't care what it is, get on the plane, get on the train, get in your car, walk across the street, show up in person and show people that they matter. It makes a huge difference.
I think that is universal in our world today, that connection and relationships are meaningful. You have a teenage son. I have three teenagers. And one thing that I've seen with them in working with either coaching different individuals in that age group is connection is wildly meaningful to them right now in their world. Meaning having real connection, building a connection, because it's become so digital in their interaction that actual connection is something that is almost new. And there's also for I was talking to a couple high school seniors earlier this fall. I was working with the student body and at our school, and they were talking about, man, we really want to connect with the students because that's so important to us, because we had a time where we couldn't, because we were, online learning, we were virtual learning. We didn't have the opportunity to be with people. This is what I take from that as a leader. That's the next group of workers. They're either going to be in, university, they're going to be coming into work, or those students that went through high school during COVID, they are now just about to enter the workforce. So if you're leading an organization, you're speaking at an event, that's who you're talking to, and understanding that they miss something and they can feel it. They don't know. Maybe we know because we're old enough, but they don't know, but they understand, I need to connect with people.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a big issue. And gosh, because we've gone through it with our own teens, I mean, it's so obvious. But I will say the one thing that's great about kids, and you know this, they bounce back so
Oh,
quickly, where
so much.
people who are older, in your 40s and your 50s and your 60s, people get more set in their ways and it's
Yeah.
more challenging. So in some ways, I'm happy because I've seen my son bounce back, right? As soon as
Yeah.
sports came back, they jumped right back on that court together. It wasn't like this. I've seen people, my age that are very hesitant to leave their houses to go to in-person
Yep.
anything. Like, what are you talking about? Like, it's crazy to me. But the one beautiful thing about people who are younger and don't know is that they kind of forget it fast. And so I've been so encouraged by watching how quickly they jump back. But yeah, you're right. It definitely has been. Listen, it was a resilience builder, right? That's a
Yeah.
beautiful thing. I'm so grateful for that. Jesse Itzler, who I absolutely love.
Yeah.
I've had him on the podcast and done some events with him. He talks a lot about the importance of, and he spoke this truth into me specifically with my son. I was struggling with sending my son away to a certain overnight camp in North Carolina for basketball a couple of years ago. And he's like, that's why you need to do it. And I said, I know, but like, I don't want the phone calls of him crying and doesn't want to stay. And what if I have to go get him? And he's like, you push him to stay. And I said, I know, but it's going to be tough. He said, that's why he's got to go, Heather. And so I
Yeah.
remember after that conversation, I said, I'm sending him, even though I really, I was second guessing it. And no, it wasn't seamless. And no, it wasn't perfect. No, it wasn't easy. But because he got through that, that set him up for a better situation to get through COVID or to get through that next rough thing he would face. And so the beautiful thing is, geez, hopefully we're not going to face adversity to that level again. Gosh, I hope so. Right. But if we do, we're going to say, we've already seen this movie. We know we can survive it. We can thrive
Yeah.
through it. And this time we can do it better. And so
Yeah.
every one of these massive adversities we face ends up being a gift if we allow it to be.
Well, and I think part of that is seeking the gift before it happens. Meaning him going to it is going to then provide a gift because it's either going to help you grow, it's going to help him grow. And I think about that not only in my own kids and dealing with that stuff, but then also from a leadership perspective, like we have to anticipate that because we're going to be working with people that have not maybe gone through those experiences because they didn't have a friend who told their mom to say, go send them off, right? Go make them do that. It's good for them. Instead, they're like, well, I want to protect, and we're allowed to do that, which nothing wrong. But now we're leading people and we have to, with grace and empathy, say, hey, I need you to go out on a limb and maybe you might fail at this, but instead of me being upset, how dare you fail? It's like, great, now we failed. How do we learn from this? How can we each get better rather than saying no or being upset about it or so many leaders, and I think we see this, parents doing it. I'm guilty of it. I'm not absolving myself, where I'm like, I don't want them to go through the difficulty. I'll do it myself. I don't want them to screw it up and have to deal with the pain. I'll do it myself. And in a leadership position, that isn't going to build their confidence, and it's not going to help your confidence in them. So just be willing to fail through that process, and it's a gift for everyone.
Oh, it's so selfish as a leader to try, or a parent to try to do everything for them, because you're dismantling that person. You're
Yeah.
basically telling them, I have no confidence in you. That's BS. Like, that's the worst leader, is the one that says, I don't believe enough in you, so I'm going to go ahead and take this on myself. The reality is, the best leaders, and I remember one of my favorite leaders I had personally in my career was my first job out of college. I worked in the wine business. The guy's name's Matt Aloya. He was incredible, just a wonderful human being, a great person, a great father, a great husband, just a great leader, a great, through and through person. But the tough things that he would teach me, I'll never forget that. This is such an interesting thing. So I was one of 3 females on a team of 100 men.
Okay.
So obviously there's a couple people here that stand out just from showing
Yep.
up in the morning, because you're just different,
Yep.
right? So that can be an advantage, it can be a disadvantage in different moments, of course. And that can be challenging. So of course I feel like I should be catered to, because I'm a woman and I'm showing up and they want me to be there, and like someone should help me. Of course I felt that way. I was, whatever, 21 years old, whatever I was. And so I thought I should be treated with privilege, because they should want me there trying to get women into the business. Cut to, I would show up late to things, not really late, but like a couple minutes here or there, which I did not think was a big deal. One day we had these monthly sales meetings, and one day I showed up 5 minutes late for the meeting. And when I got to the door to open, it was locked. And I thought, well, that's weird. Why is it locked? And I try again, and I start knocking on the door, locked. And within a couple of minutes, I had the realization, oh, he locked me out. So I sat down and I waited. And so for an hour, I sat out and waited. And then the meeting broke, and everyone, all 198 guys and 2 girls, walk out, and everyone's laughing, looking at me. And he's the last one to come out, and he says, hey, come on back in. You missed the meeting. And so I go and I said, yeah, I know, but I was banging the door because I was only 5 minutes late, and blah. And he said, stop. This is not about you. It is not the world according to you. This is not Heather Monahan's movie. You showed everyone that you have no respect for anybody else's time, including me. And a person like that's not going to make it in business or on my team. So you need to decide right now, you will never be late for something again, or you can go. And I said, I will never be late for something again. And that was it. And that hard lesson, that was hard. But you know what? I am never late for anything. That guy changed the way I see, because now I see what he taught me, that it's disrespectful. It's showing a lack of regard for others. And I never meant that. That was never my intent. If I was running a couple of minutes late, I just didn't think it was a big deal. And so he reprogrammed me the way that I think. And I've never forgot that lesson. Was it hard to learn? Heck yeah, it was hard. It was embarrassing. It sucked. But you know what? It stuck with me. So being that tough leader, being that leader that, listen, doesn't take the easy way out, that's how you show up as a great leader. That's how you change people's lives.
Yeah. And there's lessons to teach in that too. I had one of my coworkers, a couple years older than me. He said, Tyler, you're going to be late 15, 20 minutes before you ever are late. So let people know. And I do this. I remember recently I was going to the chiropractor, and I was going to be late. So it's a 20-minute drive. It's like 20 minutes. I'm going to be late. And so it's amazing to get there on time. But I said, hey, I'm going to be late. I'm letting you know I'm going to be late. I learned that lesson early in my life. And they're like, it's 20. Yeah, I'm going to be late, and I'm letting you know. And that was a lesson to me. Say, hey, respect people, give them enough time. People will give you grace. But if you're demanding grace without asking for it, they don't have to. What a lesson. And you learned that tremendous lesson. And in turn, I could imagine if you would have said, hey, 15 minutes before, I'm sorry, train's late, car late, whatever, I'm going to be late. It would have been different. But the pattern was, as you mentioned, you didn't care. It was about whatever you decided. And so he taught you the lesson.
Yeah, that was no, he would have still cared if I had called and said I was going to be late. No, that would not have been good enough.
Okay.
But it's one of those things you also have to learn what other people expect, right? Like,
Sure.
so to your point, some people are fine with that as long as you give them the advance notice. This person was not okay with that.
Yeah.
So
No, I
once
get
you know
that.
who you're dealing with and what the expectations are, you change your schedule, you change your cadence
Yeah.
to adhere to theirs. And then once you're clear on it, it's easy to do. The new
Yeah.
game plan for me was be 30 minutes early for everything. That's easy, right? Like you can make that adjustment. So there's never
Yeah.
going to be a problem moving forward. And,
Yeah.
and there wasn't.
Yeah. It's great. Well, I appreciate this so much, Heather. I appreciate the opportunity to chat with you, the value that you're bringing the world, the exposure that you are from your experience. I'm thankful. I'm grateful. I'm grateful for our friends connecting us and time to spend with you. And thank you for so much for pouring time into my life and the audience. And again, I appreciate it.
Oh, Tyler, thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful that we're friends, that we met in real life in Orlando. And now that we have this connection, I'm super grateful. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. It's human to have your confidence shaken. There's no human in this world that can escape it. I said this and I believe this wholly and to be true. Every single person in the world, yes, me, and I'm guessing you too, deals with some type of insecurity. Now that insecurity comes and goes, or it can rear its ugly head at times that we don't want it to. I referenced this in the open. You heard it in our conversation. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing. You just may be in the wrong room. Or at the same point, you need to go through the work to make that beautiful piece of furniture that is within you visible to everyone else. There's another piece that Heather wrote that we discussed, and I want to reference here. When people are trying to tear you down, remember who you are doing what you do for. Remember that. It's not about, who are you here to please today, but who are you here to serve? I'm on this journey hosting this podcast, doing the work that I do to create a course that's going to be coming out early next year, or maybe late this year. Why? Because I know I'm on mission to help others accomplish more than they thought possible by helping leaders get healthy too. That's what my journey is about. My confidence comes from the fact I'm not going to get it right, but yet I'm willing to go on the journey. And as Heather shares, as our mentor, John Maxwell, has shared recently to me, is we can only connect the dots looking backwards. We could only connect the dots looking back to what brought us here. And what holds us back is the mask that we put on, the perception that whatever we're doing is wrong. Run your own race. I had this come to me a year or so ago. The only race we will ever lose in life, the only race, is the one that we run. That's not ours. It's when we try to run someone else's race. And I believe if we look at our confidence, we allow what other people say about us. We allow ourselves to maybe make some less than optimum decisions. It's often because we're trying to run a race that's not ours. We try to do things to impress those that we feel we need to impress. Our confidence comes when we accept who we are and we surround ourselves with people that help us bring out the best of what we are. I thank you for joining in, listening. Here's something that you could do for me. You can do this for Heather. I'd love for you to go check out, maybe buy Heather's books, Confidence Creator and Overcome Your Villains. I'd also love for you to do this too, is give this show a rating. What would you think of it? Give us a review, a comment, share. Send me an email, send me a message. If you're listening in today, Tyler@TylerDuckerhoff.com or on LinkedIn, Instagram, any one of those social channels. Let me know what value you got today. I know this, is that as I go forward and I look back and I try to create the dots, and as I look and aim to serve people in this journey, I'm thankful for those little dots that help direct me along the path. Again, thanks for being here. Thanks for being a subscriber and a part of the community. Till next time, have a good one.